What is going on, pimps and players? It's your boy Namejamie, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, and that is the myths surrounding vanilla World of Warcraft. And this is going to be a top 5 list. So we're going to start out right away with number 1, the biggest myth by far that everyone has definitely heard before, and that is the argument that vanilla WoW wasn't that great of a game, and anyone who likes it is just nostalgic for the time period it was released in, or the fact that they were probably a child while playing vanilla WoW. And I think this argument comes from the fact that on its face, vanilla WoW is a very simplistic game, right? You simply just bind your spells to your key, you click on a monster, and you just hit the spell button, and essentially that's almost every encounter in the entire game. But vanilla WoW is very deceptive in the fact that it has a huge skill cap, right? And there's so much depth to the game. So you've definitely joined a group, right, where there's that god tier player who's just so much better than you because he understands the game on such a different level than you ever could or never will. And I think that is the beauty and a great counter argument to this myth is that really the depth and the knowledge that you can occur about the game. And another great counter argument to this myth is the fact that people who play WoW for a long time sort of take for granted how well vanilla WoW especially integrated the learning curve into the progression curve, right? So not only does vanilla WoW at the beginning stages teach you to play the game beautifully, but as you progress and your character gets stronger, they face you with better and better challenges to help that allow your technical skill to match that new challenge. And it sort of creates this paradigm where your character's progressing, and as he progresses, you have to get technically better as well playing the game. And that allows for this beautiful process from the noob at level 1 to a semi-good player at level 60, which is really nice to see. Another thing too is that people also take for granted, who have seen the WoW world for a long time now, the immersion that vanilla WoW especially allows some people, right? With the time commitment, the beautiful soundtrack, and the great zone design in vanilla, all allow you to really get lost in this world that is Azeroth and really just kind of immerse yourself in your game and attach yourself to your character and really care about the game on another level that sort of isn't there anymore with modern WoW. And the last kind of counter argument I would bring up to this myth is the social aspects surrounding vanilla WoW. Vanilla WoW is the only game where I would log on and 30 people would be waiting to say hi to me as soon as I logged on. And that's because vanilla WoW has a beautiful grouping method in terms of questing and raiding and progression that forces players to be social, make friends, and join up with other players, which is sort of the point of an MMO. So these are just a few of the counter arguments that I would say disprove this horrible myth that we've all heard before. The second myth I want to talk about is vanilla WoW being hard. Now, the reason I say vanilla WoW isn't hard is because there's sort of a difference between technical hardness and sort of time commitment hardness. So vanilla WoW was a time commitment, no doubt, especially when it came out. But I would say that vanilla WoW isn't very technically hard, right? We just talked about above how vanilla WoW on its face is very simplistic, right? All you're doing is going through, hitting 2 or 3 depending on whatever spells your keys are on, and then just clicking on monsters, right? And that's essentially all the game, all the way to the end game, right? There's nothing particularly difficult going on. And so it's sort of like, I would use the example here, it's sort of not like calculus, right? Calculus is hard not only because you have to put a lot of time into learning calculus, but there's also a sort of technical skill that you have to learn when putting in the time commitment to learn calculus. And just because you put in the time doesn't mean you'll get that technical skill set, and thus it's very hard. But with vanilla WoW, if you put in the time, there's really nothing you can achieve, and you really don't need to learn that many technical skills to do it. And I also don't really understand why people push this myth, because I see this myth pushed mostly by people who love vanilla WoW. I think people who love vanilla WoW push it as a way to legitimize the game as a hardcore game and a good game. But as I talked about above, vanilla WoW is already a great game for so many other reasons. I don't think it needs to be a very hard game to be good, right? I don't think a game being simply hard equates to being a good game. So I don't really understand why people push this myth, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me considering I've played vanilla WoW and it wasn't that difficult of a game to understand. So That's why I put it in as number 2 on the list. The third myth I put on my list is sort of contrary to what I just said, but not really, and we'll go over that. And that is that leveling in vanilla WoW is time consuming, and it is the majority of the game. Now, this probably used to be true, and that's why I think it doesn't run contrary to my other points, is that vanilla WoW, especially when vanilla WoW was released, leveling was the majority of the game, for sure, no doubt. People had crappy computers, there wasn't quest guides, there wasn't add-ons out the wazoo, people weren't really able to share information, and people kind of just played vanilla WoW at their leisure and for fun. But in modern society, and especially on private servers, you see this, leveling really doesn't take that long anymore, especially with all the add-ons like Questy and Jane's Help or Jane's Guide or whatever it's called. There's literally a guide that will tell you every quest, every zone, every mob you need to kill exactly to the dot to get to level 60. And because of that, people can simply just follow these guides and level all the way to 60 in like 2 months time. It really doesn't take that long anymore. And because of that, I just don't think that the myth, I think that the saying that leveling takes a lot of time has just become a myth, right? It really doesn't take that long. What I find takes much longer nowadays is farming raids in your guild and getting the gear you actually need to progress. I actually think that now takes longer than leveling itself. And I also think farming the consumables on top of doing the raids takes longer. Like, overall, it seems that even vanilla WoW has now ended up shifting to a majority endgame, which is sort of sad to see, but is what it is. Speaking of raids and dungeons, this brings me to my fourth myth, and that is that raids and dungeons in vanilla were hard. I could not find this being further from the truth, and this is another myth I sometimes see being pushed by people who loved vanilla WoW as sort of a way to legitimize the game. But again, it just simply isn't true. So we'll start with dungeons. Every dungeon you'll do from like 1 to 60, or sorry, like 1 to 50 is basically a spank and tank. Every mob, every boss is just a spank and tank. There's really no bosses that require in-depth mechanics at all. I mean, as you start getting to Blackrock Spire, and maybe upper UBRS and like lower Blackrock Spire, and also maybe a few other ones out there, those dungeons have a little bit of depth in them and a few mechanics that you have to navigate around. But still, a majority of all fights are basically spank and tanks. It's really not that difficult. Now, when you get to raiding, I find that people, when they say that raids are hard, they sort of confuse people by like new players, because new players think that raids are difficult because the content is difficult. And I don't think that's particularly true. I think what people mean when they say raids are hard and they don't clarify is that raids were difficult because not only do you have to get 40 people together, you also have to have all 40 of those people like in unison. And on top of that, you have to have them committed to farming the consumables in order to do specific raids. And that's the hard part of raiding in vanilla. So I do think there's a little bit of truth to this myth, hence why I put it so far down on the list. But raids overall, yeah, in terms of content and mechanics, really aren't that difficult. The hard part really comes in from the fact that people have to put in the time to farm consumables, and on top of that, you have to find 40 people who are willing to work together in unison and stay together for an entire raid, and who have the time. Those are the harder things to find when raiding, and that's what makes raiding hard, more so than raids themselves actually being difficult in vanilla WoW. This brings me to my last myth, which is lowest on my list because I don't hear it that often, but I have heard it a little bit, and that is that classic servers are going to be just like original WoW or vanilla WoW, and I just think this is blatantly false, because even if Blizzard manages to create everything exactly to the T, exactly how it was back in the day, it still won't be the same because the external factors surrounding vanilla WoW have just changed. People don't have crap desktop computers anymore. People have really good internet connections. They're older, they're smarter, we have more knowledge about the game. It's easier to share knowledge about the game. It's easier to find knowledge about the game. It's easier to communicate with your guildies. Everything is just way more advanced. And because of these extraneous factors, vanilla WoW just won't play the same, and it just won't be the same. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think the core tactics that made vanilla will still be intact. But I just want people to be realistic in their expectations going into vanilla WoW about what they should expect and what other people will be doing. So with that being said, that was today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed any of what I'm doing recently. That's gonna be all today, folks. Peace. Woo!